Hi friends. I invite you all to listen to a brand new story.
The first thing I remember from that spring was the sound of melting snow dripping from the roof of my cabin. It was quiet in the forest, quiet in a way that presses against your chest and makes you feel like every heartbeat is too loud. My name is Ethan Cole. For the last 20 years I've lived on the edge of the wilderness in northern Montana, far away from city lights, offices, and the restless hum of the modern world. People in town called me strange. Some whispered that I talked to animals, that deer would wander to my porch without fear. I didn't bother correcting them. Solitude had become my companion, and the rhythm of chopping wood, fixing tools, and drinking black coffee on the porch was all I needed. Or at least I thought it was. That early spring morning, the snow was thin and patchy, revealing wet earth and twisted roots. I was walking the trail toward the creek with an axe over my shoulder when I heard it, a faint whimper. High-pitched, weak, the kind of sound that slips under your ribs and squeezes your lungs. I froze listening. The forest was still except for that desperate cry. I followed the sound through tangled brush until I found him. A small gray pup, half buried in mud, his fur clumped with ice, ribs sharp against the skin. One front leg was twisted unnaturally, his body trembling so violently that every breath looked like it might be his last. A wolf pup. My first thought was to step back. Where there's a pup, there's a mother, and no wild creature is more dangerous than a wolf defending her young. But this one was alone. His eyes fluttered open for a moment, pale gray, cloudy with pain, before closing again. He let out another whimper, softer this time, and I knew if I walked away he wouldn't see the next sunrise. I stripped off my flannel shirt, wrapped him carefully, and pressed him against my chest. His body was icy cold. I could feel the faintest heartbeat fluttering like a dying bird. Back at the cabin, I lit a fire in the stove and laid him near the warmth. I cleaned his wounds with warm water, bound his broken leg with linen strips I normally used for splinters, and whispered to him as though words could keep him alive. That night I didn't sleep. I sat by the fire, watching every shallow rise and fall of his chest. At dawn, when I offered him a small bowl of goat's milk, he weakly lapped at it. His nose nudged my hand, and in that fragile gesture something passed between us. Trust, or maybe a surrender. I named him Ash, because of his smoky gray coat, and because he rose from the edge of death like a wisp of ash carried from a dying fire. The days that followed were slow but steady. Ash struggled to stand, wobbling on his crooked leg, collapsing, trying again. Each time he fell, he lifted his head with those gray eyes, stubborn and curious. I took him outside when the sun was warm, let him sniff the air and watch the ravens circling high above. He would tilt his head back, ears pricked as if memorizing the world. But I never forgot the truth. He wasn't a pet. He was wild, and the wilderness would always call him back. My heart knew that sooner or later I'd have to let him go. The night that changed everything came quietly. I had dozed off in a chair by the fire when a low rumble woke me. At first I thought it was thunder, but then I heard it again, deeper, resonant. A growl, followed by a long, haunting howl that seemed to rise from the marrow of the earth. Ash was already standing by the door, fur bristled, not in fear but in recognition. His eyes glowed in the firelight, and I knew he had heard his kin. I opened the cabin door slowly. On the clearing outside, bathed in pale moonlight, stood 5 adult wolves. Massive, silent, their golden eyes fixed on me, unblinking. Ash stepped forward. His tail low, ears alert, his body pulled by an invisible thread of instinct. The largest wolf, scar across one eye, moved from the shadows. He was the alpha, his presence undeniable, his silence louder than any growl. And then it happened. Instead of snarling, the alpha lowered his head in a deliberate bow. Every instinct in me screamed to back away, but I stayed rooted to the porch. One by one, the wolves circled the cabin, sniffing the ground where Ash had lain, where I had fed and tended to him. The scarred alpha approached me. My breath caught. Ash slipped between us for a moment, nuzzled my leg as if to say goodbye, then limped toward the pack. The alpha stepped aside, allowing him to pass. But before leaving, the alpha turned back. He placed one massive paw on the edge of my porch and lowered his head again. Another bow. A gesture of respect. Of gratitude. Then, as silently as they had appeared, the wolves melted back into the forest, Ash among them. I stood in the cold night air, staring at the empty clearing, wondering if I had dreamed the whole thing. But the paw prints in the mud were real. I thought it was the end of the story. That I had saved a life, and now nature had reclaimed what was hers. I was wrong. Because 3 nights later the pack returned. And this time, they weren't here for Ash. The second time they came, I knew it wasn't about Ash anymore. I was sitting by the window when I heard the low chorus, growls, shifting paws, the soft crunch of snow. I stepped outside, lantern in hand, but left it unlit. My eyes adjusted to the dark, and there they were again. More of them this time. A dozen wolves, their bodies filling the clearing like living shadows. The scarred alpha stood at the center, silent, powerful. My pulse hammered. Wolves didn't return to the same place twice. They didn't seek humans. But here they were, waiting. The alpha moved forward. Then, something no wild wolf should ever do, he lay down at my feet. His massive frame stretched across the frosted ground, eyes lifted to mine in an unspoken plea. Behind him the pack parted. And through the line stepped Ash. No longer the fragile pup I had carried from the mud, but a strong young wolf. His limp was still there, but his frame was lean, his coat thick, his eyes burning bright. He pressed against my leg like he had that first night by the fire. In that moment I understood, the wolves weren't just visiting. They were calling me. The days after their return were uneasy. I tried to fall back into routine, splitting wood, patching the roof, repairing old drawers that creaked in the cold, but it all felt hollow. Every sound from the forest pulled my eyes toward the tree line. Every breath carried the weight of being watched. And then the knock came. It was rare for anyone to visit my cabin. Most folks in town avoided me, and I preferred it that way. But this time when I opened the door, I saw Sheriff Collins. A broad-shouldered man in a mud-stained uniform, eyes tired but sharp. "Morning, Ethan," he said, tipping his hat. I stepped aside, and he came in, glancing around my simple cabin before his gaze landed on the folded blanket by the stove. "Someone staying with you?" he asked. "No," I replied flatly. "Just me." He studied me for a moment, then pulled out a small notebook. "We've had reports from folks north of here. Strange wolf activity. Packs gathering near barns and chicken coops. They didn't attack, just stood there watching." I said nothing. "Anything unusual out here?" I hesitated, the weight of what I'd seen pressing on my chest. Wolves bowing. Ash returning. The sense of being summoned. If I told him, he'd think I'd gone mad. "Tracks," I said carefully. "But no aggression. Could just be migration." Collins frowned, then nodded. "Maybe. Weather's been strange this year." He headed for the door, then paused. "One more thing. Folks have been hearing howls close to town. Closer than they should be. People are nervous." His eyes lingered on me a second too long before he left. I didn't sleep that night. Around midnight, I heard it again, movement in the trees, a low rumble that vibrated through the ground. I stepped onto the porch, heart pounding. This time there were more than a dozen. 2 dozen at least. They filled the clearing like a silent council, their eyes glowing in the dark. The scarred alpha approached me once more. And then he did something that froze my blood. He inhaled deeply, long and slow, like he was inviting me into something, like he was drawing me into their world. Then he turned and walked toward the forest. The rest of the pack followed. Ash stopped once, looked back at me, and then disappeared into the trees. I stood there, shaking, the night air freezing in my lungs. What did they want from me? The next day in town, I felt the stares before I even reached the store. People whispered, some openly glaring. Behind the counter, old Martha slid me a copy of the local paper. "You should see this," she said. On the front page was a grainy photograph of shadows in the fog, huge shapes moving together. The headline read, "The pack returns to the valley. Experts warn of rising activity." "Where was this taken?" I asked. "Near the old ranger station, couple miles from your cabin." Her voice dropped. "Some folks think they're being drawn down from the ridges. Too close. Too deliberate." I folded the paper and nodded, but the weight in my chest grew heavier. When I left the store, a voice called after me. You've seen them, haven't you? I turned. It was Ivan Blake, a loud-mouthed rancher in a leather jacket, his boots crunching on the gravel. He stepped closer, jabbing a finger at me. Everyone knows they're on your land. Don't try to deny it. I've seen tracks, I said evenly. Tracks, he barked. People saw them 3 times this week. Packs don't gather like this unless someone's feeding them. Unless someone's calling them. I met his glare. I don't control wild animals. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Maybe not. But they act like you're one of them. And if one of my calves turns up dead, it'll be your problem. He stormed off, leaving the air thick with hostility. That evening, I returned home later than usual. The sun was setting, bleeding red light through the trees. Something was wrong the moment I stepped into the clearing. The air carried a bitter scent, chemical, metallic. I crouched by the roots of a pine and brushed aside leaves until I saw it. A small steel trap, rusted but armed, hidden beneath needles. My gut clenched. I scanned the ground and spotted another glint of metal. Then another. 5 traps in total, all within a few hundred yards of my cabin. Someone had been here. Not for me but for them. I disarmed each trap with shaking hands, my heart pounding louder with every snap of metal. By the time I carried the last one to my shed, a sharp howl ripped through the night. Close. Too close. I grabbed my lantern and ran toward the sound. At the edge of the woods I found him. Curled beside a fallen tree, breathing hard. Blood darkened his front leg where one of the traps had caught him. The wound wasn't deep, but it was fresh. Ash. My voice broke as I knelt beside him. His eyes, clouded with pain, found mine. A soft, desperate exhale escaped his chest. I tore strips from my shirt and bound the wound as best I could, whispering to him, steadying my hands even though a storm raged inside me. Whoever set those traps wasn't careless. They were hunting. Ash pressed against me, trembling but trusting, just like he had the night I first found him. And as I sat there in the darkness with his weight against my side, one thought burned hotter than the fire in my cabin. If they dared set traps on my land, what else were they planning? The morning after Ash's injury, the forest felt different. The birds were restless, darting through the trees in sharp bursts. Even the wind seemed tense, carrying with it the kind of silence that warns of a storm. I'd barely finished bandaging Ash again when the crunch of tires on gravel reached my ears. I stepped onto the porch, mug in hand, as a government truck rolled into the clearing. 2 men got out. Both in pressed uniforms with the insignia of the state wildlife department. One tall with sharp cheekbones, the other stocky, his eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses despite the gray sky. "Mr. Cole," the tall one called, showing me a badge. "Agent Carter. This is Agent Miller. We'd like to ask you a few questions about wolf activity in this area." I nodded, masking the churn in my gut. "I've seen them. Heard them." Carter glanced at Miller, then back at me. "We've had multiple reports of an unusually large pack near your land. Wolves don't normally gather this close to town. Some say they've established territory right on your property. They haven't caused harm," I said carefully. "Not yet," Miller muttered. His voice was low, edged with something that wasn't concern so much as suspicion. Carter folded his arms. "The state has authority to conduct environmental checks on private property if there's a public safety risk. You understand." I kept my face still. "This is protected land. No traps. No interference." Miller stepped forward. "And what if a child gets attacked, Mr. Cole? You willing to take responsibility for that?" I met his gaze. "They haven't attacked anyone. Fear isn't proof." For a moment, silence pressed between us. Then Carter sighed. "We're not enemies here. But if that pack grows bolder, protocol is clear. They'll be relocated." "Relocated?" I repeated. "Sedated. Transported. Hundreds of miles if necessary." "They won't survive," I said quietly. Carter's eyes softened just slightly. "Maybe not. But we can't risk predators on the edge of town." He handed me a card, crisp and white, his name printed neatly above a government seal. "If you see anything unusual, call." The 2 men left as quickly as they came, their truck vanishing down the road. But their words clung to me like frost. Relocation. Relocation was just another word for exile, or worse. That night, I sat by the fire with Ash at my side, his breathing steadier but still strained. I stroked his head, whispering what I didn't believe myself. They won't take you. I won't let them. The pack returned that night. I didn't light the lantern. I waited in the dark, heart pounding as silver shapes slipped through the trees one by one. The scarred alpha in front, the others fanning out behind him like sentinels. Ash hobbled out to meet them, his bandaged legs stiff. They circled him, sniffing the wound, their golden eyes flicking to me. Then the alpha stepped forward, his scar catching the moonlight. He inhaled, deep and long, as if pulling me closer without touch. Then he turned and the pack began to move. Ash looked back at me once, then followed. This time I followed too. The forest swallowed us. For 20 minutes I trailed them through trees and across shallow streams, my breath loud in my ears, their movements silent as shadows. Finally, the trees parted, revealing a clearing I hadn't seen in years. In the center stood the rotting frame of an old hunting cabin, its walls strangled by ivy, its roof sagging beneath moss. The wolves circled it, tails low, bodies tense. They sniffed the ground, whined softly. I stepped closer and froze. Traps. Dozens of them. Old and new, scattered like a field of rusting teeth. Some half-buried, others fresh and sharp. The scarred alpha howled, long and mournful. From deep in the forest, other voices answered. Not just his pack, others. More than one pack was gathering. I turned to leave, to retreat back into the safety of the dark, but a harsh beam of light cut through the trees. "Don't move," a voice barked. I raised my hands instinctively as two men in military-style uniforms emerged, rifles slung across their shoulders, radios crackling at their belts. They weren't locals. Their gear was too clean, their movements too sharp. "Name," one demanded, the flashlight burning into my eyes. "Ethan Cole," I said evenly. "What are you doing out here?" "I live nearby. Heard wolves." The taller one narrowed his eyes. "You were following them." "I was walking," I replied, my voice flat. They exchanged a glance. One pulled a small handheld scanner from his pocket, waving it across the traps scattered on the ground. The screen flickered with faint signals. "Infrared shows recent activity," he muttered. "Somebody set these not long ago." I clenched my jaw. "Wasn't me." The taller man stepped closer. "But you knew they were here." I said nothing. His eyes searched mine, sharp as blades. "You've been in contact with them, haven't you?" "The wolves." My pulse spiked, but I didn't flinch. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Either you're feeding them or they see something in you the rest of us can't." I met his stare. "And if they do?" A thin smile flickered across his face. "Then you're interesting. And dangerous." Without another word, they turned and melted back into the trees, their radios crackling until the forest swallowed them whole. I stood alone in the clearing, the wolves already gone, the ruined cabin looming like a warning. The message was clear. I wasn't just being watched. I was being studied. The next day Sheriff Collins came again. No notebook this time. No questions. He sat on the porch steps, his hands hanging heavy between his knees. "You had visitors?" he said after a long silence. I didn't answer. "They're not from my department. Not from wildlife either." His eyes found mine. "You know what this is, Ethan? The truth." I shook my head slowly. He sighed. 30 years ago, a man named Kolsnik lived near that ridge. A recluse like you. One winter he claimed wolves were following him, circling his cabin, watching without attacking. People thought he was crazy. Then one night he vanished. All they found were bloodstains and sprung traps. No body. He stood, brushing off his jeans. "I don't know what you've stumbled into, but listen carefully, be careful who you trust. Not all predators walk on four legs." That evening, while checking the northern edge of my property, I found something new. A small plastic flag, bright red, planted in the soil like a marker. I pulled it free and turned it in my hand. A GPS tracker. And on the side, almost invisible, were two letters, DWN. The name meant nothing to me. But the implication was clear. They weren't just tracking wolves anymore. They were tracking me. The red plastic flag sat on my kitchen table all night, its tiny black light blinking every few seconds like the heartbeat of something alive. I couldn't take my eyes off it. They weren't just watching the wolves. They were watching me. I turned the flag over in my hands, running a thumb across the faded letters, DWN. I opened my old laptop, the one I barely used. The signal out here was weak, just a sputtering satellite link that dropped in bad weather, but it was enough. I searched for hours. Wildlife programs, federal agencies, environmental groups. Nothing concrete. Just scattered mentions in obscure forums, broken links on academic sites. And then I found one post on a decade-old military board. A user named WolfAction79 wrote, "Dawn flagged my patrol zone back in Afghanistan. They said it was for behavioral research on wolves. But the packs acted wrong, coordinated, deliberate like soldiers. We knew it wasn't natural. No replies. No follow-up. Just silence." I leaned back in my chair, pulse racing. Whatever Dawn was, it wasn't about conservation. It was about control. The next day, I drove down the gravel road to the old library in town. Few people went there anymore. Dusty shelves, forgotten maps, volunteers who barely looked up from their knitting. Behind the desk was Miss Clara, sharp-eyed even at 90. "Well, if it isn't Ethan Cole," she said, peering over her glasses. "Haven't seen you in months. What brings you here?" "History," I answered. "Old records. Anything on wildlife studies near the ridge." Her brows lifted. "Digging into local legends, are you?" "Something like that." She pointed me toward the back archives. "Try the third cabinet bottom drawer. No one's touched it in years." The drawer was heavy with yellowed folders. I flipped through reports, hunting permits, weather logs. Then I saw it, a file labeled in fading ink, Kolsnik 1992 Ridge Anomaly. My breath caught as I opened it. Inside were notes from a ranger. Handwritten, shaky. He described how the recluse named Kolsnik reported wolves behaving abnormally, surrounding his cabin, watching him for hours at a time without aggression. One note chilled me to the bone. Observed subject reports wolves maintaining formation, eyes fixed on him, distance less than 10 feet. Duration, 47 minutes. No attack. At the bottom of the file was a stamped note in red ink. Case closed. Investigation terminated. I read it twice, jaw tight. Kolsnik hadn't been crazy. He'd seen what I was seeing now. And whatever Dawn was, they'd been here long before me. That evening, Ash limped to the porch as I returned, stronger now but still favoring his injured leg. I sat beside him, the folder heavy in my lap. "They were here before us," I whispered. "Before you. Before me. And they didn't come to help." Ash tilted his head, his gray eyes locked on mine. For a moment, I could almost believe he understood. Then I saw it. At the edge of the trees, hovering just above the branches, was a drone. Black, small, with a faint red light pulsing. Watching. Recording. The second I moved toward it, it zipped away into the darkness with inhuman speed, vanishing deeper into the ridge. I grabbed my coat and followed, crashing through branches, lungs burning. I lost the drone quickly, but in its place I found something else. Footprints. Not mine. Not fresh but recent. 2 different sets. Wide, heavy boots. They led deeper into the restricted zone of the ridge. On the bark of a nearby tree, almost invisible in the fading light, was a carved symbol. A circle split down the middle, half white, half black. A warning. A boundary. The ridge wasn't just wilderness anymore. It was theirs. The following night, Sheriff Collins returned once more. His face was grim, heavier than before. "Ethan," he said quietly, "do you know what you're walking into?" "Not exactly." He rubbed his jaw. "That symbol you saw, the split circle, I've heard whispers. Folks call it Dawn. They've been around longer than you'd think. 30 years ago, Kolsnik talked about them. Said men with unmarked trucks came to his cabin after he reported the wolves. He vanished soon after. Official word was that he got lost in a snowstorm." I shook my head. "He didn't get lost." Collins's eyes hardened. "No, he was taken. And if you keep walking this road, Ethan, you might be too." Before I could answer, a distant howl split the night. Long, low, desperate. Ash stiffened beside me, ears pricked. More howls followed. Not just one pack this time. Multiple, echoing from different directions, overlapping until the forest trembled with sound. I looked at the sheriff, but his face told me he heard it too. "Jesus," he muttered. "It's happening again." Later that night, I sat awake at my table, the dawn marker still pulsing. My thoughts raced. The wolves weren't gathering by chance. Something was pushing them closer. Something unnatural. And if dawn was behind it, then this wasn't just about wolves anymore. It was about me. The forest had changed. I'd lived by those ridges for 2 decades, and I knew their every trail, every tree, every sound. But now the woods felt unfamiliar, watched, patrolled. The air itself seemed wired with tension. Ash grew restless too. He paced the porch at night, his ears twitching at sounds too faint for me to hear. Sometimes he'd bark once, sharp and urgent, then stare toward the ridge like something out there was calling him. One night I decided to follow. Ash trotted ahead, his limp lighter now, his body lean and strong again. He led me north, deeper into the restricted zone, where the trees thickened and the ground dipped into a shallow ravine. That's where I saw it. Half buried in the hillside was a structure of steel and concrete. No windows. Angular, industrial, out of place in the wilderness. Antennas jutted from its roof, blinking faintly. The hum of electricity carried through the air. It wasn't old, and it wasn't abandoned. I crouched low, heart pounding, watching from behind the brush. 2 cameras rotated slowly on mounted arms. A low were echoed each time they shifted. Ash growled, the sound low and primal. "Quiet," I whispered, though my own voice shook. I studied the ground. Fresh tire tracks. Boot prints deep and wide. And something worse, metal cages. 3 of them, set in a circle near the clearing. Heavy bars, reinforced locks. One cage still held tufts of gray fur clinging to the steel. Dried blood darkened the floor. My stomach turned. Another cage lay open, its door hanging ajar, and on the ground beside it was a thick leather collar. Industrial, studded with sensors and wires. Etched into the leather was the same split circle symbol. Dawn wasn't relocating wolves. They were capturing them. Experimenting on them. A sharp click behind me snapped my head around. A man stood at the edge of the clearing, his face hidden by a black mask, a tranquilizer rifle raised. His stance was practiced, precise. "Step away from the cages," he ordered. His voice was flat, cold. Ash bared his teeth, a snarl ripping from his throat. I raised my hand slowly. "I'm just looking for my dog." The man didn't lower the rifle. "This is restricted property. Turn around. Walk away." "You're setting traps on private land," I shot back. "You're the ones making people afraid of these animals." For the first time, his eyes flickered behind the mask. "You ask too many questions." He shifted his stance, the rifle steady. "Walk away, Mr. Cole. If you come back, nobody will find you. Not the sheriff. Not anyone." Before I could reply, a sharp whistle echoed from the ridge. The man glanced over his shoulder, then melted back into the trees with the kind of discipline you only see in soldiers. The hum of the hidden facility vibrated in the still air. Ash pressed against my side, trembling but fierce. I knew then, whatever Dawn was doing out here, it wasn't about research. It was about control. About turning wolves into something they were never meant to be. And somehow I had become part of it. By dawn, word was spreading in town. People whispered about helicopters seen at night, about strangers in black uniforms, about wolves disappearing. At the gas station, I caught the tail end of a conversation. "Telling you it all started when Cole took that pup in. He's the reason they're hanging around. Maybe he's training them. God knows what for." When I walked inside, the room fell silent. The stares followed me all the way to the counter. Even Sheriff Collins avoided my eyes, weighed down by pressure he couldn't speak about. The isolation I had chosen for myself was turning into something darker. Suspicion. Paranoia. Fear. But it wasn't just the townsfolk I worried about. It was Dawn. That night, I patrolled the edge of my land. The traps I'd disarmed days earlier had been replaced with new ones. More sophisticated. Pressure plates instead of jaws. Cables instead of springs. Whoever was setting them wasn't just trying to catch wolves, they were trying to capture them alive. Ash sniffed at one, growling low, the fur along his back rising. I dismantled it with careful hands, adrenaline shaking through me. As I tossed the last of the devices into the shed, a howl erupted from the ridge. Not a natural howl. This one was sharper, broken, almost mechanical. Ash stiffened, his body quivering as if torn between answering and fleeing. And then, from deep in the ridge, dozens of voices rose in unison. A chorus of wolves, but it didn't sound like wolves I knew. Their howls were too synchronized, too controlled, like an army chanting. The sound froze my blood. Ash pressed against me, whining softly, his eyes wide. I knelt, wrapping my arms around him, feeling his heartbeat hammer against my chest. "They've done something to them," I whispered. "They've changed them." That was when the headlights appeared. 2 trucks rolled down the gravel road, their beams sweeping across my clearing. I ducked inside the cabin, peering through the curtains as uniformed men climbed out, carrying cases of equipment. They weren't coming to ask questions this time. They were coming to take something. Ash growled low and I pulled him back, heart hammering. For the first time in years, I felt trapped in my own home. I barely slept that night. The trucks stayed on the ridge for hours, their engines humming low, lights sweeping the treeline. I sat in the dark with Ash pressed against my leg, every muscle in his body tight, his ears twitching at sounds I couldn't hear. Near dawn the engines faded. When silence returned, it wasn't the silence of peace. It was the silence of a predator waiting. By afternoon, I knew I couldn't just sit and watch anymore. I walked the northern edge of my land, scanning for new traps or flags. That's when I saw movement. Not a wolf. A person. I froze, my hand instinctively tightening around the old hunting knife on my belt. From the shadows stepped a woman. Mid-40s, her dark hair braided tight, a camo jacket too clean to belong to a local. She raised her hands slowly, palms open. "Don't be afraid," she said. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. I didn't lower the knife. "Who are you?" "My name is Dr. Olivia Sawyer. I'm a field ecologist. I used to consult for Dawn." The letter struck me like a fist. She stepped closer, eyes tired but steady. "I know you don't trust me. I wouldn't either. But you need to hear the truth." I kept my stance rigid, but Ash moved forward cautiously, sniffing at her boots. He didn't growl. Olivia exhaled, almost in relief. "If he trusts me, maybe you can too." We sat at the edge of the clearing and she told me everything. "When I started, Dawn presented itself as a research project," she said. "Marking wolves, tracking migration, studying pack dynamics. Harmless. Necessary even. But 2 years ago it changed. They started focusing on anomalies, packs that responded too cohesively to human threats, packs that acted with abnormal intelligence." Her eyes flicked to Ash. "Like yours." My jaw tightened. "They're not mine." She nodded. "But they see you as part of them. And Dawn wants to know why. They're trying to reproduce it. Force it." I remembered the cages, the collars, the unnatural chorus of howls. "What are they doing to the wolves?" Her face hardened. "Conditioning. Neural stimulants. Sound cues. They want to create control structures. Packs that function like units trained without domestication. Wolves as guardians. As weapons." My stomach twisted. "Weapons." Olivia looked away. "They call them natural sentinels. Imagine borders lined with wolves that respond to commands. Trackers. Hunters. Living security systems. To them it's genius. To me it's horror." For a long moment, the only sound was the wind brushing through the pines. Ash leaned against me, his eyes never leaving hers. "What about Kolsnik?" I asked finally. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "He was one of the first case studies. A man who lived close to the ridge, who formed a connection with a pack. He disappeared 30 years ago. Dawn said he wandered off in a storm. But the truth? He and his wolves were taken. None of them came back." The anger that had been smoldering inside me flared white-hot. "They're not just experimenting," I said. "They're erasing anyone who stands in the way. Olivia nodded slowly. That's why I left. I couldn't watch it anymore. But leaving doesn't mean safety. They monitor me too. If they knew I was here with you. She trailed off, eyes scanning the tree line, as though expecting a drone to rise at any second. What do you want from me? I asked. I have proof, she said, her voice low. Documents, data. Everything Dawn doesn't want seen. But I can't move through this terrain without someone who knows it. Someone the wolves trust. Her gaze shifted to Ash. Someone like you. Ash tilted his head, his ears twitching. He nudged my knee with his nose as if sensing the decision weighing down on me. For years I had lived alone, believing solitude was safety. But solitude was no defense against men like Dawn. What do you need? I asked finally. She pulled a folded map from her jacket and laid it across the dirt between us. A red X marked the center of the old quarry. There's a transmission tower there. They store all field data before sending it to the main servers. If we can get close enough, I can access the relay and download the files. Proof of everything. The experiments, the wolves, the disappearances. And if we're caught? Her eyes didn't waver. Then we disappeared too. That night, the air vibrated with tension. We sat at my table, the map spread between us, the lamplight flickering. Olivia prepared her equipment. A rugged laptop, a portable antenna, wire cutters, lock bypass tools. I packed what little I had. A flashlight, a knife, a two-way radio. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the cabin walls. Every shadow felt alive. Every creak of wood sounded like footsteps. Ash paced the floor, restless, pausing only to press against me as if reminding me of his presence. Near midnight, I whistled softly. Eyes gleamed in the darkness beyond the clearing. One by one, wolves stepped into the open. 12 of them, silent, watching. The scarred alpha in front, his gaze fixed on me. I walked out into the cold, my boots crunching on the frost. My chest tightened as I whispered, I don't know what's coming. But I swear, I'll do everything to keep you free. The alpha blinked slowly, then touched his nose against my palm. Ash stood between us, tail flicking, his eyes moving from me to the alpha and back again. Behind me, I heard Olivia's sharp intake of breath. They trust you, she whispered. I shook my head. No. We trust each other. The pack circled us once, silent, then melted back into the shadows. Ash stayed, pressing against my leg. His choice was made. At dawn, the plan began. The quarry was deep in the ridge, an abandoned scar in the earth left to fill with shadows and rumor. Dawn had chosen it well. Few locals dared go near. Landslides years ago had sealed most of the old tunnels, but one drainage pipe still ran beneath the site. Narrow. Filthy. Just big enough for a person to crawl. That's our way in, Olivia said, her finger tapping the map. Every night, their drones cycle down for 20 minutes while data uploads. That's our window. I studied the pipe's mark on the map, my gut tight. And if the schedule changes? Her eyes met mine, steady and grim. Then we don't come back. When dusk fell, we stood at the edge of the woods. My cabin behind us, the ridge ahead. Olivia adjusted the strap of her pack. Once we're inside, I'll need 10 minutes with the relay. No more. After that, we run. Ash pressed against my leg, ears pricked, eyes glowing in the fading light. The scarred alpha's howl rose in the distance, long and low, carrying through the trees like a warning or a promise. I swallowed hard and whispered, "All right. Let's end this." We stepped into the shadows of the ridge. And for the first time, I wasn't walking alone. The night swallowed us whole. We moved along the tree line in silence, every sound magnified in the stillness. Branches cracking, boots sinking into frost, Ash's breath steaming in the cold. Olivia walked ahead with purpose, her flashlight kept low, the beam slicing thin lines through the dark. By the time we reached the quarry's edge, the world had narrowed to stone and shadow. The pit yawned below us, a hollow wound scarred with rusted cranes and broken scaffolding. Floodlights bathed the center in harsh white glare. Trucks ringed the site, their headlights off but engines humming. Dawn was awake. Olivia crouched low, her eyes on the patrols pacing the perimeter. 2 guards at the north fence, one by the relay shed, she whispered. Cameras on the towers. We'll use the drainage pipe here. We slid down a slope of shale, rocks clattering too loud in the quiet. I flinched with every sound, convinced the floodlights would swing our way. But they didn't. The patrol stayed steady, oblivious. At the bottom we found the pipe, a rusted cylinder jutting from the earth, half-choked with weeds and ice. It stank of stagnant water and old oil. Olivia pulled a crowbar from her pack, wedged it against the grate, and pried until the metal shrieked open. She looked at me once, her eyes grim. 10 minutes. That's all I'll need. I nodded. I'll cover you. Ash slipped inside first, his tail brushing my arm as he vanished into the dark. I followed, the cold metal scraping my shoulders, the stench clogging my throat. Olivia came last, her breath sharp and fast behind me. The pipe narrowed, forcing us to crawl. My palms slid through muck, my knees grinding on rust. Every few feet, Ash paused ahead, his ears twitching, his body tense. Then he'd move forward again, silent as smoke. At last, the pipe opened into shadow. We emerged in a cavern of concrete and steel, the underbelly of the quarry. Above, faint vibrations trembled through the walls. Generators, engines, machines working unseen. There, Olivia whispered, pointing. A staircase rose to a platform where a small shed bristled with antennae and cables. The relay. We crept toward it. The air reeked of diesel and damp earth. Chains clanked somewhere above. Halfway up the stairs, a light snapped on. Stop. A voice, sharp and cold, echoed off the concrete. A guard stepped from the shadows, rifle raised. His eyes flicked over me, then locked on Olivia. Recognition flashed. You shouldn't be here, he said. Olivia's face drained of color. Miller. The man's jaw tightened. You should have stayed gone. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Ash growled low, his body coiled. Miller's rifle swung toward me. Drop the knife. I froze. Then Olivia stepped forward, her voice shaking. Please, don't do this. You know what Dawn is doing. His finger twitched near the trigger. I know exactly what they're doing. And it works. That was all Ash needed. He lunged, teeth flashing. The rifle cracked, the shot deafening in the chamber. Sparks flew as the bullet ricocheted off steel. Ash slammed into Miller's arm, the rifle clattering to the ground. I surged forward, knife in hand, but Olivia was faster. She kicked the weapon across the floor and drove her elbow into Miller's jaw. He crumpled, blood streaking his chin. Ash snarled, teeth bared, but I pulled him back. Enough, I whispered. His chest heaved, his eyes burning, but he obeyed. Olivia's hands shook as she bound Miller's wrists with a length of cord. He won't stay out long. We need to move. The shed door was locked, but Olivia's tools made short work of it. Inside, the relay hummed, banks of servers lined with blinking lights. She pulled the laptop from her pack, jacked it into the console, and began typing furiously. 5 minutes, she muttered. Keep watch. I stood by the door, knife tight in my grip, Ash pressed against my leg. The shed vibrated faintly with the data stream pulsing through its veins. Outside, the quarry groaned with life. Engines idled. Voices drifted. Boots crunched gravel. Then I heard it, a howl. Not Ash. Not the pack. This one was wrong. Low, metallic, jagged at the edges like it had been twisted into something unrecognizable. Ash stiffened, his ears flattening, his hackles bristling. A whine escaped his throat, the first time I'd ever heard fear in him. What is it? I whispered. Olivia's fingers froze on the keys. Her face drained. Oh God, they brought them here. Them? Her eyes flicked to me wide and panicked. The conditioned ones. The howl came again, closer this time, vibrating through the steel walls. Then another answered it. And another. Ash growled, his body pressed tight against mine. Olivia's laptop chimed. Download complete. She ripped the cable free, shoved the computer back into her pack. We have to go. Now. We slipped from the shed, Miller groaning faintly where he lay bound. Outside, the quarry glared with light, shadows moving fast. Shapes slipped between the floodlit scaffolds, large, silent, wrong. The first one stepped into view. It looked like a wolf, but its eyes glowed faint red, its gait stiff and unnatural. A thick collar ringed its neck, wires trailing like veins. Its fur was patchy, its ribs visible beneath, and yet its stare was alive with something more than animal hunger. Ash snarled, the sound raw and primal. The creature responded in kind, its howl tearing through the quarry, echoed by a chorus from the shadows. Olivia's hand clamped on my arm. "We can't fight them. We run." I nodded once, my throat dry. Together we sprinted down the stairs, Ash bounding ahead. The red-eyed wolves surged from the scaffolds, their bodies jerking with every motion as though half-controlled, half-possessed. Floodlights swung, alarms wailed. Guards shouted, their rifles cracking. Bullets sparked off steel as chaos erupted. We hit the drainage pipe, crawling, scrambling, mud slick under our palms. Behind us, claws scraped metal, howls echoed, voices cursed. The night collapsed into a storm of sound and fear. And still Ash never faltered. We burst into the forest, gasping, filthy, alive. The cold air slapped my face. The moon burned bright above the ridge. But we weren't alone. From the trees eyes gleamed, gold, not red. The pack. The scarred alpha stepped into the clearing, his gaze locked on me. Behind us, the quarry howls rose, metallic and monstrous, a twisted chorus closing in. Between the two, the forest held its breath. Ash stood in the center, his body rigid, torn between blood and shadow. The battle for the ridge had begun. The forest was alive with sound. On one side, the twisted chorus of Dawn's wolves, their red eyes blazing, their metal collars sparking with faint currents. On the other, the pack I'd come to know, led by the scarred alpha, their golden eyes burning with something raw, unbroken. And between them stood Ash. His body quivered, hackles raised, lips peeled back in a snarl. His eyes darted from me to the scarred wolf, then to the red-lit shapes pouring out of the quarry. His chest heaved, caught between blood and brotherhood, between what was made and what was born. "Stay with me," I whispered, though my voice shook. "Stay, Ash." He glanced back, ears flicking at my words. Then the first of Dawn's wolves lunged. The clearing exploded in chaos. Red eyes streaked through the dark, metal collars flashing. Bullets cracked from the quarry fence, guards shouting over the storm. The natural pack surged forward, silent and ferocious, slamming into their altered kin with teeth and fury. The sound was a nightmare, metal clashing against bone, howls breaking into screams, the crack of jaws snapping shut. Ash launched himself into the fray, his injured leg forgotten. He tore into one of the collared beasts, ripping at the wires until sparks burst. The creature convulsed, shrieking before collapsing into the snow. I fought too in my own desperate way, knife flashing, swinging at shadows that moved too fast, too wrong. One lunged for me, its breath hot with rot, and I stabbed upward, feeling steel meat flesh. Blood, black and thick, splattered across my coat. "Ethan." Olivia's voice cut through the storm. She was crouched behind a fallen log, laptop clutched to her chest. "They'll keep coming unless we cut the signal." "What signal?" I shouted. "The collars, linked to the relay. It's still broadcasting." I glanced back toward the quarry, floodlights blazing in the distance, the relay shed glowing faint. "Then we end it," I said. I sprinted toward the ridge, Ash at my side, tearing through snow and root. The battle raged behind us, wolves colliding in a storm of teeth and steel. The scarred alpha's roar shook the night, answered by the shrill, broken howls of the altered ones. We reached the quarry fence. Floodlights swung our way, rifles snapping. Bullets chewed bark as I dove into the shadows. Ash leapt the fence with impossible grace, vanishing inside. I followed, lungs burning, heart hammering. The relay shed loomed ahead. Guards scrambled, shouting orders, their rifles jerking toward us. But Ash was faster. He slammed into the first man's chest, sending him sprawling. I tackled the second, knife flashing, adrenaline drowning out fear. I crashed into the shed door shoulder first. It splintered open. Inside, the relay thrummed, light strobing red across the walls. The hum was deafening, like a swarm of wasps alive in the wires. Olivia's voice crackled from behind us, her shouts carried by the wind. "Smash it! Now!" I grabbed a rusted wrench from the wall and swung. Sparks exploded as the console buckled. Ash lunged at the cables, tearing them free with his jaws, sparks spraying across his muzzle. The hum broke. The lights died. And in the distance, the red eyes flickered, then dimmed. One by one, the altered wolves staggered, their bodies jerking, collapsing into the snow. The forest fell silent. Only the natural pack remained, panting, bloodied but alive. The scarred alpha limped forward, his golden eyes fixed on me. For a long moment, the world held still, just his stare and mine and Ash trembling at my side. Then the alpha tilted his head back and howled. Not of rage but of release, of mourning, of victory carved in loss. The pack joined him, their voices lifting into the night until the ridge itself seemed to sing. Ash stepped forward, ears perked, torn between the call of his blood and the bond at my side. For a heartbeat I thought he would leave me. But then he turned, pressed his head against my hand and stayed. By dawn, Dawn's trucks were gone, their guards vanished into the night, leaving only broken steel and blood in the snow. Olivia sifted through the wreckage, her laptop glowing faint as she copied files, her eyes sunken with exhaustion. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. She looked at me, her voice flat. "Now the world learns the truth. About Dawn. About what they tried to make." I glanced at Ash, his fur still bristled, his eyes tired but steady. He leaned against my leg, warm despite the cold. "The truth," I said softly, "is that they can't make this." Olivia followed my gaze, and for the first time since I met her, she smiled. We left the quarry behind as the sun climbed, painting the ridge in pale gold. The forest stretched endless before us, scarred but unbroken. And as I walked, Ash at my side, I knew one thing with certainty. The ridge would never be theirs. It was his. It was ours.
Bye-bye.